I have the honor of getting to do the first session here, and it's one of my favorite things that I get to do every single year. This is the state of digital asset adoption, enterprise digital asset adoption. And the idea behind this presentation is that everybody in this room, we're all kind of deep practitioners of crypto. And the thing about being a deep practitioner of crypto means that you are basically heads down all the time, surrounded in a pile of terrible transactions that you're trying to figure out what the heck your partners, clients, customers are actually doing. And so once a year, it's kind of fun for us all to step back and look at the industry, look at what's changed over the last 12 months, look at how things are evolving, all that kind of stuff. So that's what this session is. It's a really fun one to actually get into it and go through here. So the way that we tend to organize this is the first thing we're going to talk about is the macro effects that are out there. So the things that are happening in the broader market that are changing things. And then we'll dive into the key trends that are actually shaping the industry as we kind of go through this. So first and foremost, this was from a couple stats here that we wanted to share. I love these stats. Coinbase, as part of their State of the Industry, did a survey of Fortune 500 companies. 56% of them are working on-chain projects. Now, this is a spectacular number. I mean, at the end of the day, you ask them about AI, this is probably a full 100%, but blockchain it's a different beast. Like it's a product of finance. It's a product of like how you're making money and doing supply chain. So this is pretty spectacular to see this. And I think that this is only going to go up and up and up across the years here. There's Finery Markets pulled together a stat. There's 2.6x year-over-year increase in stable coins on chain. So the way that we kind of think about this stat is that you don't just put stable coins on, you don't put USD on chain for fun. I know it's a funny way to say it, but like right now, most folks who have USDC on the blockchain probably, or USDT or PayUSD, they probably are not earning yield on it because it's actually a little complex to earn yield on your USD, on your stable coins. So at the end of the day, like if you're putting stable coins on chain, you probably are using that for payments. You're probably using those for payments, for invoices, B2B, B2C, all that kind of stuff. If you know Bitwave, you know that we love payments more than anything in the world. Like payments are just, it's one of the absolute killer use cases for crypto that we see. So when we look at a stat like that, which is a more than double of stablecoin growth on chain, that tells us that payments are going up. That means that we're looking at like a 2x growth in payments over the last year, which is amazing. EY has a great quote here. Institutions believe in the long-term value of digital assets. We're seeing that this year. So we're going to be talking a lot about institutions today. So we always talk about enterprises. That's an easy one. It's Enterprise Digital Asset Summit. But one of the big themes this year is going to be institutions because boy, oh boy, are the institutions getting into this stuff for real this time. And of course, I'd be incredibly remiss given what day today is and what happened yesterday to not talk about the ETFs, the ETH ETFs. So yesterday, 9 ETH ETFs got approved. This is always a moment for celebration in the industry. It's one of those ironic moments of celebration that, like, deep down, we as crypto people should all not like the idea of CFI institutions coming in and selling these things. Like, we should all like the idea of people buying ETH themselves and holding it on their wallets at home. But at the end of the day, that's not how your grandma's going to get access to ETH. That's not how your Luddite friends are going to get access to ETH. They're going to buy it through ETFs like this to get access. So we already saw there's expected to be $15 billion of net inflow in the first 18 months. $107 million yesterday came into ETH with $1 billion of trading. I mean, that's real value. That's real money actually happening there. Now, what we're going to see though as part of this is there's going to be some really weird stuff because Grayscale has their huge trust, which was always trading at a pretty, a high premium versus ETH itself. So there's going to be movements out of that trust into ETH. So there's choppiness to be expected here. But overall, after the Bitcoin ETF, we saw a run up of Bitcoin. So I think we're going to see something similar around that. Speaking of which, it's funny to think about, we did the last EDAS, May of 2023. So it was over a year ago at this point. And it's hard to remember because, in crypto land, time has no meaning anymore and just things move fast. But boy, it's only been like 3 months since we did the Bitcoin ETFs or whatever, 4 months or something like that. And already there are $63 billion in spot Bitcoin ETFs under management, which is incredible. Like that is so much money that flew into the industry. There was, as soon as that launched, it drove the price of Bitcoin up to 73K. So it's amazing to kind of see what's happened over the last few years around or over the last few months even around Bitcoin and adoption. Right now there's everything's going on that is very much looking like a move towards the bull market here. And this, if we're not already kind of deep in a bull market, then we're certainly moving that direction there. So a couple other things that we would be remiss not to talk about. So there's obviously been new guidance, new regulations, and some litigation that's kind of gone away. So I won't spend a lot of time because we're gonna have a lot of discussions about the new FASB guidance today. It was awesome. Like, it was great getting FASB guidance. There were some pros and cons of it. You know, this is the way that we talk about this at Bitwave is, you know, we all kind of thought the first time guidance came out that it would clear a lot of things up, but in fact, it left a lot of ambiguity, which is good for software providers, good for service providers, and maybe not as good for the enterprises themselves. But we're going to work through that over the next couple years. You know, that will just get refined and refined. So like things that were still left out was, you know, wrapping treatments and real clarity on what's security versus what's fair value treatment. But at the very end of the day, it is net good that people are thinking deeply about this. We're publishing documentation, we're publishing guidance, and actually there's something you can hang your hat on when you go and do your actual accounting and GAAP work on these things. IRS just dropped some new regs a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. There's going to be a phenomenal session on that today, and Bitwave's actually built a couple of features to adapt to the new regulations they pushed out. But this again is pretty good. I mean, pros and cons. Like, the IRS made some choices that I'm not sure if they'd pulled the audience members here that we would have all collectively made for them as part of those choices. But they made those choices, and we'll have to kind of live with them because that's how the IRS works. But it's still really good that we actually are in this place where we now have real pretty clear guidance from the IRS on how to do all your your taxes, your spec ID, all that kind of stuff from that side. There's been some litigation that got cleaned up. So, Paxos, the investigation got dropped. Stacks was determined to be like an actual, distributed currency. Consensus, they won one of their lawsuits, which was around Ethereum, or one of their SEC investigations around Ethereum itself. But then MetaMask got wrapped up in a swap, in a Wells notice for swaps. Alongside Uniswap and a few other folks. Ripple had a judge decide in their favor on one set of issues, but they're still under SEC investigation, things like that. So there's things that are clearing up. There's been a lot of big wins this year, to be honest. Like, Ripple getting the judgment that they got was a huge win in the digital asset industry, so that's great. The Wells notice stuff around Uniswap is going to be a real tough one for them to kind of deal with. That's going to be one of the more interesting things that kind of happens over the next 12 months for us all to kind of keep our eye on. And then just really briefly about some of the regulations out there. The House has actually been amazingly responsive to crypto. So I love this. This was the FIT21 bill, which was there was two bills that were passed. One was a SAB 121 bill that got to the president's desk and then got vetoed. The FIT21 bill was the one that was actually designed to clarify regulatory guidance around crypto. So this is the one that tried to draw some lines in the sand and say, this is a commodity being managed by the CFTC. This is a security managed by the SEC. It really tried to do that. 81, I believe it was 81 Democrats came in on this vote, which is spectacular. Like, that's, this has been there's been a division in that there, but actually having bipartisan support for a bill like that is great. We're definitely not going to see that. At this point we're in full campaign mode, so nothing interesting happens out of the U.S. Senate in towards the end of the year. But maybe next year, I think a lot of people are expecting this to come back and get passed. So that's really exciting. So let's drill down a little bit into the more key trends that are kind of happening within the crypto space here. Staking and restaking are one of those things we talked about last year. We're going to talk about it again this year because it continues to be the first place that a lot of enterprises are getting access. So that'll be one of the trends is like, what's the first way that enterprises touch digital assets? One of those ways is NFTs, but one of those ways is staking assets. One of the big trends this year was, of course, restaking. So this is the idea that you are buying into something like a liquid staking protocol, and then you take those liquid staking products and tokens, and you restake them for additional yield on top of it. This is one of those use cases that is I'm not sure we've seen a phenomenal actual hard driving use case come out of this, but it's also super hard to argue with $18 billion of inflows. Like, that is such a huge number. It's a meaningful percentage. We have a $2 trillion market right now, so $18 billion is it's a real amount of money in that overall market. But I think restaking it's found a little bit of a use case around people hoping to get liquidity. So if you are launching a new protocol and you create a liquid staking protocol on top of that, and then you can actually take that out and restake it, there's some interesting use cases to get some liquidity early on around liquid staking in particular. Staking protocols a little bit, restaking a little less so. But you can't argue with these kinds of numbers. So keep your eye on this. We have some features that are coming out later in the year to help with this, but it's a super interesting one. This one is we actually went back and forth a lot on whether to even talk about this because it's sort of the rise of Web3 social. The argument that we eventually made about why we wanted to talk about Web3 social was that there's been no social network that enterprises and businesses haven't quickly followed people to. So that's the kind of thing. You think about Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, all these social networks have a massive business presence on all of them. So there's really no, so when we start thinking about what's gonna be the first way that enterprises touch digital assets, one of those ways very well might be getting into a Web3 network, having to buy ETH so that you can actually buy advertising slots on these networks, which none of them take, well, some of them do, but like a lot of them do not take USD traditionally. You have to pay with ETH, you have to pay with like USDC to actually buy advertising slots. So this is one of those things that it's worth keeping an eye on. The MAU is still well below the 3 billion users that Facebook has. So I think that we have a ways to go before this is a real thing, and they're still figuring out a few of the things around like moderation and stuff like that sort of like that's really important in the social space. But again, there's going to be enterprises entering the space as we kind of sit here. Ooh, all right, this one's super exciting. Is that last year we talked about the rise of enterprise-focused blockchains. This year we're going to be talking about that more, but also there's the rise of institutional blockchains. So Canton is one that we work with. They're very, very focused. It's a different kind of like use case than enterprise blockchains. Like very enterprise-focused blockchains are focused on smart contracts, they're focused on payments, they're focused on all these sort of like, heavy business use cases. Institutional tends to be focused on high volume settlement layers. So this is it honestly is one of those perfect use cases for blockchain. So blockchain's killer use case, if you abstract everything else away from it, what blockchain is super, super, super good at is getting people that don't like each other or don't trust each other, and all the banks on Wall Street, they're all frenemies. They all do deals with each other and deals against each other all the time. So getting a big group of folks like that all together to actually be able to collaborate on a set of tech is incredibly hard. So that's what Canton's done, is actually build up a tech that these guys can all kind of agree on, can put settlement on, all that sort of stuff. So watch this. It's gonna be really, really exciting. We're involved. They're a customer. We love them. It's been a lot of fun here. There is still a continued focus on the enterprise L1s. Hitachi just joined the Hedera Foundation, which is super exciting because they're obviously someone like Hitachi that's doing electronics manufacturing is going to come in with a real focus on supply chain. So it's one of those things in my life that like I am waiting for the absolute killer use case of enterprise, of supply chain hitting the blockchain to come into it. And when that happens, we're going to do an amazing slide. There'll be a slide all about it, and I will spend like 15 minutes on that slide next year when we actually are seeing that real enterprise use case. IBM set it back a little bit with the deal with Maersk, so that it might be a year or two before we really see it. But if you look at all these guys, like the Boeings of the world, the Hitachis, all of those, this is it's an amazing way to see how people are starting to think about this. You have like DLA Piper thinking about what on-chain contracts look like. You have Boeing obviously thinking about supply chain. You have something like Hitachi thinking about supply chain. You have Ubisoft thinking about gaming. It's a cross-cutting of how you can sort of think about the entire world of digital assets here. So super, super exciting from that side. I want to talk really briefly about zero-knowledge proofs, because they've obviously, the term has exploded this year. And it's one of those things that's actually a lot of complexity around the term. So it's one of those things that like, you've certainly heard of networks like zk-sync, which is a zero-knowledge proof roll-up network. zk-sync can be thought of as a network that is kind of in competition with something like Optimism. So Optimism uses a technology called optimistic rollups. ZK uses a technology called ZK rollups. The idea is optimistic rollups tend to use more storage, but be less computationally intensive. ZK rollups tend to use less storage, but be way more computationally intensive because of the underlying zero-knowledge technology. So you're just, everything in computer science, everything in technology here is making trade-offs. But one thing that I want to mention is that actually, when we think about ZK proofs at Bitwave, what we get super excited about is not the L2 tech. Like L2 is awesome. We're seeing this like great explosion of L2s. Maybe a few too many L2s, if we're all being quite honest. Like it's sometimes hard if someone wants to pay you money, you're like, well, which of the 70,000 L2s do you want to pay us on? But one of the technologies that zero knowledge enables is in the enterprise world they're going to be really excited about is the ability to start getting serious about actual private payments on chain. So I'd say one of the biggest hesitancies to payments on chain continues to be the idea that payments on chain are obfuscated but not private. So that is to say that like if you run a pretty tight ship in terms of operational security, when you make a payment, there are a lot of ways to obfuscate who you are paying, how you are paying them, who you are, so that someone just looking at the blockchain may or may not know that it's you. But there's also a lot of ways you can kind of mess that up and accidentally, pay out of your primary wallet, and suddenly everybody knows which is your primary wallet and how much money you have and stuff like that. So this idea of true privacy, zero-knowledge proofs actually enable that. So if we move to a world where you actually can set up a zero-knowledge proof network or a zero-knowledge proof protocol for payments, I could pay 5 Bitcoin to someone, and as part of doing that, no one would know either the amount, the balance of my account, or the balance of their account. They would see a transaction hit, and they would see it get signed, but they would have no idea what actually was moving, besides the folks that are moving the assets, and then the auditors after the fact. That technology has not come to fruition yet. There's a lot of folks working on it. There's a lot of people thinking about it. Like we love thinking about it here at Bitwave, but it is the part of zero knowledge that is like kind of nascent. So keep an eye on it. ZK, you have ZK rollups, but the stuff that we all in this room should be really excited about is zero knowledge proofs as it sort of relates to enterprise payments, enterprise smart contracts, all that kind of stuff. All right. So one of the terms that we have all talked about this last year is RWAs. And this is a really interesting slide for me because at the end of the day, like when RWAs first came out, like at maybe a year, 2 years ago, they really started to come to prominence. People were doing crazy stuff. Like I remember like people were tokenizing Rolexes onto the blockchain, and they were tokenizing Ferraris, and like it was more of like what we actually think about as RWAs, like real world physical assets you can poke and stuff like that. What's happened is that the term tokenization, which has been around for a very, very, very long time, like since, I don't know, the beginning of ETH basically, has kind of eaten the world of RWAs. And they've kind of merged in a lot of ways. So when you hear people talking about RWAs today, they tend to be talking about the killer use cases that have emerged have been things like T-bills, like bringing T-bill investments on chain. So things like BITL from BlackRock, assets like what Franklin Templeton is doing with Stellar, all of those things are really more of a tokenization than RWA, even if we tend to use the term RWA to kind of refer to them. So I think what's funny is that when I first wrote this slide, I wrote DeFi 2.0, and then I kind of like stopped and like, well, this isn't DeFi 2.0 because this isn't DeFi. It's really this is the first major entrance of a lot of the CeFi players into the cryptocurrency ecosystem, because it's folks that are looking for, there's trillions of dollars in the Bitcoin world now, in the crypto world now, so they're looking for additional liquidity, and they're looking to be able to do quick exit and entrance into those liquidity things. It is a really interesting moment where if I were a DeFi protocol, I might be a little bit scared about Franklin Templeton or any of these big guys, BlackRock certainly, getting into the crypto space here. So something to watch for in this world here. Obviously, crypto payments are going off the chart. We have an amazing panel about that today, but they continue to grow. I think that this is going to be the place where crypto payments are going to eat the payments world. They just are going to absolutely demolish the traditional payments world because they are just so much faster, cheaper, better. Everything about it is out there. We'll be talking about this a lot today, so I won't spend too much time on this slide, but just get ready for it. All right, so this is a fun one. We last year at EDAS we did a few predictions. This year, we get to come back and report on them. So first and foremost, we predicted that development will just skyrocket during the bear market, or during like this rise up into the bull market. So here's what happened: is that during this is like unique developers. The dark blue line here is developers that have consistently been in the space for longer. So in the 2022 bull market, we saw this huge spike in like new developers checking in code, which is to be expected, and that's obviously dropped off. But what's been great is this group of folks that have just consistently developing, who are actually pushing more than one PR into these branches here. So we've certainly seen this actually pick up, and I think we'll continue to see this like gradual rise in that. And this is the health of the ecosystem. Like this is hype. This is health of an actual development ecosystem. The Shanghai upgrade went spectacularly well. This is where we actually moved to staking on ETH, and then ETH then allowed withdrawals. Now, what would have been really, really, really bad at that point is if we started to see tons of people pull their money out of the ETH2 network. So like what could have happened is there's three things that could have happened. We could have seen the number of stakers like just explode. We could have seen the number of validators just drop off precipitously, which means everyone is withdrawing network. Or we could have seen it plateau, which means you have an equal number of new folks coming in as well as people leaving. What we've seen is actually basically about a plateau, which is actually pretty good for the ecosystem that we like to see there. $30 billion in USD circulation. That was an easy one. This is definitely, last year was a year of crypto payments. We're probably going to say that again next year because we just love the world of crypto payments. And then the last one here that we actually put down was super interesting, which was that we made the prediction last year that NFTs will continue to be the on-ramp for big brands getting into crypto. So that is to say, it's not to say that NFTs, this wasn't a comment about the NFT markets themselves. This was more saying that if you are a big brand, the first thing you're going to do is not necessarily buy crypto to ride the wild wave with the rest of us. What you're going to do is you're going to do some sort of brand engagement. So we saw that happen. Spotify did a project, Cadillac did a project, Nike did a project, Visa did a project. All these guys did these consumer engagement projects on NFTs last year. I'm not going to be making that prediction again, but it's good. All right, so in 30 seconds here are our predictions for this year. So first and foremost, this is going to be a monster year for the betting markets. I mean, obviously with the election, all that kind of stuff. We wrote this prediction before Bloomberg did an article. Like there's literally, Bloomberg released an article this morning all about Polymarket. This is exploding in value here. So this is going to be the big year for betting markets. We're going to see that. They get reported on CNN now, which is crazy. Yield-bearing stablecoins. I am the biggest fan of yield-bearing stablecoins because it is just the killer use case for Bitcoin, for crypto. This idea of a payment medium that as you are paying, you are earning interest on, like it is just absolutely crazy. I expect this year to start to see more and more CBDCs, however you feel about them. They have good uses as technologies. There's good uses and bad uses, so we'll see how it goes. But we're going to see a lot more this year about it. And then finally, this is the year of the Web 2.5 experience. And when we say that, what we mean is, Web 3 has been defined. If you're doing Web 3 experiences, part of the way that's been defined is like having your MetaMask, connecting it, having to know a lot of the intricacies of the internals of your system, which is not easy. Like not everyone knows how your wallets work. Web 2.5 is the stuff that's based on account abstractions, where you actually now are able to totally abstract away the crypto that you're using. Polymarkets does this. If you ever use Polymarkets, they completely abstract away. You can deposit crypto, but you don't have to have a wallet. You don't have to do anything like that. It just kind of works. So this is the year for really, really strong user experiences driven by account abstraction, basically. So that's it from me, you guys. This has been really, really fun. I am super honored.